Today, on The Power of Framing, we'll kickstart the week with a short story to frame a new virtue and gain a renewed focus. Are you ready? Let's step into the vault. Welcome to Monday. What if life wasn't about the delusion of everything going right, but about the discipline of refusing to let the darkness have the last word? Living in Norway these past few years has given me a front row seat to how powerful darkness, or should I say, the absence of light, can be. Up here, the seasons themselves teach you something about how life and growth crave the light. Long stretches of cold, gloomy days where the sun barely crests the horizon, or in the high north, where you might only get 2 hours of twilight during the wintertime. It's seasonal, it's fleeting, but it changes you and impacts you all the same. You feel it in your energy, your emotions, even in the way you interact with the people around you. Sometimes it's a little nasty. But as heavy as seasonal darkness can feel, there was a time when the darkness I faced was far more than weather and daylight. It was emotional, it was spiritual, and it nearly consumed me. And as raw as my deployment to Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom 1 was in 2003, watching small children die before my eyes at the young age of 18 years old, or my deployment to Afghanistan in 2008, or lots of other places across the globe, my mind rewinds its game tape 20 years to my time in Germany. I remember walking through the halls of Landstuhl Regional Medical Center. I remember going into the wards, wounds seeping through bandages, the awful smell of scraping burn victims in the OR, calls coming in at all hours of the night for our team to respond because there was an unforecasted flight coming with a very seriously injured person that needed critical care. Family members begging for comforting words I wasn't sure that we could give. Patients screaming in physical pain or waking up in the middle of the night with screams. Family members also screaming in emotional pain and sometimes physical pain because of it. Sound heavy? Yeah, it was heavy as hell. One thing is certain. Not everything was a story of rainbows and unicorns like my 3 little daughters probably wish that everything could be. So what did optimism look like when the darkness surrounded and the light and energy seemed to evaporate like a winter evening in Norway's high north? Well, in the middle of it, I didn't lose my sight of my mission, and honestly, I didn't even lose faith in my God. I lost myself. I numbed myself with alcohol. I ran recklessly into promiscuity. I tried to outrun the weight of negative emotions. But the more I buried the negative emotions alive, instead of actually dealing with them appropriately, the more they came back to the surface when I didn't want them to. That's where optimism proved itself to be different than positivity. It wasn't some shallow, glass half full mindset. If I had a glass, it was probably filled with whiskey, and I had already drank it all dry. It was bone dry, and it was probably shattered into shards across the floor somewhere. And those things have happened. Optimism for me was never about pretending the darkness wasn't there or slapping a silver lining on the pain. It became a bold defiance, a refusal to believe that darkness would get the final word. Optimism in those moments was the belief that even when the worst happened, when the body broke, when faith felt silent, when relationships fell apart and vanished, when life knocked me flat, there was still a reason to stand back up. It doesn't erase the stress, but it reframes how we face it. That's why, in emotional intelligence, optimism lives under stress management. Because optimism doesn't mean you're stress-free. It means you can shoulder its weight and still press forward with the belief that your next breath is worth fighting for. It's the belief that while the emotional winds of positivity or negativity may shift, optimism is the rudder that straightens your course, and it's the ballast that evens your keel. So, as we dive into this virtue of optimism over the next couple of weeks, and we reflect and wrestle with what it means to each of us individually, collectively, and in light or in the absence of light, I'll leave you with this question, where we started it all. What if life wasn't about the delusion of everything going right, but but about the discipline of refusing to let the darkness have the last word. I'll see you on Wednesday. Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Power of Framing. Follow Foundational Coaching on your favorite social media platform, where I'll meet you on Wednesday and you can ask me anything you want. I'm honored to be a part of your story today, and I'm proud of your growth, my friend. I can't wait for our next time together, exploring the vault.